The ocean is vast, endless, a realm of untold mysteries and chilling secrets that have defied explanation for centuries. Across the rolling waves, ships have set sail only to disappear without a trace. Some never return. Others drift back, silent, empty, untouched by time, yet missing the very souls that once walked their decks. These are the ghost ships, vessels lost to the void, carrying only whispers of their forgotten crews. Tonight, we journey into the depths of maritime legend, exploring the eerie, the unexplained, and the truly terrifying. From ships found abandoned with half-eaten meals still on the table to final distress calls that defy all logic, these stories are not mere fiction. They are real-life accounts of vessels that vanished into nothingness, leaving behind only fear and speculation. But beware, these are not just stories to be heard. These are echoes of the past, reminders that the ocean never truly forgets. And as you listen, remember, some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Hold on, before we continue, I just want to say something. If you're working, studying, or getting ready to sleep, feel free to put this video on in the background and let the haunting stories of the deep unfold around you. The mysteries of the ocean have a strange, almost hypnotic way of drawing you in, making this the perfect video to immerse yourself in as you wind down. Let the eerie tales drift through your mind like waves against the shore, setting the perfect atmosphere for relaxation, deep focus, or even a descent into sleep. Just sit back, relax, and let the mysteries of the sea take you on a journey unlike any other. SS Valencia, the doomed ship of lost souls. The sea has taken many ships, but some never truly rest. They become something else, haunting the waters where they met their fate, whispering their stories in the wind. One such ship is the SS Valencia, a vessel that left port with hope but became a floating nightmare, forever lost in the mist of the Pacific Northwest. What was meant to be a routine voyage instead turned into one of the most horrifying maritime disasters in history, a tragedy so chilling that it left behind more than just wreckage, it left behind a legend. A legend whispered among sailors, retold by those who have heard the echoes of the past in the waves. A routine voyage turns to horror. January 20th, 1906. The SS Valencia, a passenger steamship, set sail from San Francisco to Seattle, carrying over 100 passengers and crew. The journey should be simple. A well-established route, a sturdy ship, and experienced sailors should have ensured safe passage. But as the ship nears the rocky coastline of Vancouver Island, the weather begins to shift. A brutal storm rolls in. The once clear sky darkens, and within hours the sea transforms into a churning monster. Howling winds scream through the rigging, towering waves crash over the deck, and blinding sheets of rain turn visibility to nothing. The ship is thrown off course, disoriented in the blackness of the storm. The crew struggles desperately to regain control, but nature is unrelenting. Then, the worst happens. The Valencia strikes a jagged reef, ripping open her hull like paper. The force of the impact throws passengers from their beds, sending them tumbling as seawater surges into the lower decks. The desperate fight for survival. Water floods in fast, rushing through the gaping wound in the ship's side. Panic spreads like wildfire. Passengers and crew scramble in the chaos, searching for any means of escape. The lifeboats are lowered, but the storm is merciless. Waves capsize some lifeboats before they even touch the water. Others drift helplessly into the night, swallowed by the furious sea. Some survivors attempt to swim for shore, only to be dragged under, their desperate cries muffled by the raging storm. On board, those who remain cling to whatever wreckage they can. The Valencia, battered by the relentless storm, slowly begins to break apart. Survivors huddle on what remains of the decks, watching in horror as their doomed vessel is claimed by the waves. From the cliffs above, onlookers witness the terrifying scene, people, stranded on the wreckage, screaming for help, only to be swept away, one by one. The storm does not yield. Hope turns to despair as the relentless sea reclaims those who had dared to fight against it. For nearly 2 days, the stranded passengers clung to the ship's battered remains. Rescuers tried to reach them, but the violent surf made any approach impossible. Desperate survivors watched helplessly as the last of their fellow passengers disappeared into the freezing waters. The Valencia groaned under the assault of the waves, breaking apart bit by bit, until nothing remained but floating debris and the memory of those who perished. By the time the storm passed and rescuers could finally reach the site, it was too late. Of the over 100 people aboard, only 37 survived. The rest were claimed by the ocean, their bodies never recovered, their names lost to the deep. A ship that never left. For most, this is where the story should end, but it doesn't. In the years that follow, strange sightings emerge. Sailors and fishermen report a ghostly vessel drifting near the rocky shores of Vancouver Island, a ship eerily similar to the SS Valencia. Some claim to hear faint cries for help drifting across the water, carried by the wind. Others swear they've seen lifeboats manned by shadowy figures, rowing endlessly toward shore, before vanishing into the mist. The survivors' accounts of their time aboard the Valencia add another chilling layer to the mystery. Some swore they saw shadowy figures moving among them before the ship was swallowed by the waves. One of the most chilling discoveries comes decades later. An abandoned lifeboat, perfectly preserved, washes up on a nearby beach. It is identified as one of the Valencias, yet no survivors or wreckage were ever found in the area. As if it had been sailing alone for years, guided by an unseen hand. The lifeboat's eerie condition only fueled the legend, leading some to believe the ship itself continued its doomed journey, forever replaying its final voyage through the mist-covered waters. Legend or warning? To this day, the waters where the SS Valencia met her fate remain treacherous, feared by sailors. Some believe her ghostly form lingers as a warning, a reminder of how quickly the sea can turn from ally to enemy. Others whisper that the souls of the lost are still there, forever trying to reach the shore they would never set foot on again. Fishermen have reported lights flickering on the horizon, where no ship should be. Some claim that when the wind is just right, they can hear the faint echoes of voices carried across the water. Some claim that on stormy nights, when the mist rolls in and the wind howls through the cliffs, the Valencia reappears. A spectral vision, sailing her final course once more. A crew doomed to relive their last desperate moments, forever trapped in the place where the sea claimed them. And those who have dared to follow the ship's ghostly outline into the fog report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the ocean itself is warning them to turn back. But one thing is certain, the Valencia never truly disappeared. And if you ever find yourself sailing those mist-covered waters, listen closely. You might just hear the echoes of the doomed ship's final cries, carried by the wind, forever seeking the salvation they never found. SS Marine Sulphur Queen, the vanished tanker. The ocean has swallowed many ships, but some disappear without a trace, leaving behind nothing but questions, theories, and fear. One such mystery is the SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a vessel that set sail and was never seen again. A tanker that carried more than just cargo. It carried a chilling legend of vanishing without a sound. What happened to her and her crew remains one of the great maritime mysteries of the modern era, a case that continues to baffle investigators and haunt the families of the lost sailors. A routine voyage into the unknown. February 2, 1963. The SS Marine Sulphur Queen, a 524-foot tanker, departs from Beaumont, Texas, bound for Norfolk, Virginia. Her cargo? Over 15,000 tons of molten sulfur, a dangerous and highly flammable load. The crew? 39 men, experienced, ready for what should be a standard journey across the Gulf of Mexico. It was a vessel designed to withstand long journeys, but beneath its steel exterior lay hidden dangers, flaws that would later be scrutinized as possible causes for her disappearance. But this would be no ordinary voyage. This would be her last. 3 days later, the Marine Sulphur Queen is scheduled to check in. She never does. The radio falls silent. No distress calls. No SOS. Just silence. The ship had seemingly disappeared into thin air, leaving behind nothing but speculation and fear. The search for a ghost. When the ship fails to arrive in Norfolk, the Coast Guard launches an immediate search. They cover over 350,000 square miles of ocean, scouring the waters for any sign of the missing tanker. The vastness of the Gulf of Mexico makes the search challenging, but authorities are determined to locate the vessel or, at the very least, find evidence of what happened to her. Planes and ships comb the sea, tracing her projected path. Days pass. Then, small pieces of debris begin to surface. Life preservers, oil slicks, a single, eerie clue, a nameplate reading, Marine Sulphur Queen. But the ship itself? Gone. The crew? Vanished. No wreckage, no flotsam significant enough to suggest a complete breakup of the ship. Just these scattered fragments, as if she had been plucked from existence. Some of the life vests appear unused, raising even more questions. If there had been time to abandon ship, why was there no distress call? Theories and nightmares. What happened to the Marine Sulphur Queen? Some believe she suffered a catastrophic explosion, her molten sulfur cargo igniting into an inferno, destroying the ship instantly. A blast of that magnitude would leave little behind, explaining the absence of wreckage. Others suggest structural failure. The ship had already been flagged as unsafe, with concerns about her stability and modifications. Reports had warned that cracks had been developing along the ship's hull, and some experts claimed that she may have broken apart in rough seas, taking the crew down with her before they even had a chance to react. Then, there are the theories that delve into the unknown. The Marine Sulphur Queen vanished within the Bermuda Triangle, one of the most infamous regions of disappearances in maritime history. Could she have fallen victim to the same force that took countless other vessels? Some sailors whisper of strange, sudden fogs that descend without warning, of compasses spinning wildly, and of an overwhelming sense of dread before disaster strikes. Could she have been caught in one of these anomalies? Did she encounter something beyond our understanding, something that left behind no wreckage, no bodies, no explanation? Some researchers point to electromagnetic disturbances in the Bermuda Triangle, citing unusual anomalies recorded by other vessels in the area. The ship's metal hull, combined with its volatile cargo, might have reacted to something inexplicable beneath the waves. There are even claims that aircraft flying above the region have recorded unexplainable turbulence and equipment failures in the same area where the Marine Sulphur Queen disappeared. A ship without a grave. Despite extensive investigations, no conclusive cause has ever been determined. The ship was simply never found. Families of the lost crew members were left with no closure, no answers, only speculation and grief. Some relatives of the missing sailors believe there was a cover-up, arguing that authorities knew more than they admitted. Could the ship have been involved in an undisclosed experiment? Was its cargo more hazardous than reported? The questions remain unanswered. In the years since her disappearance, reports of strange lights in the Gulf of Mexico have surfaced. Some fishermen claim to have seen a ghostly outline of a tanker drifting silently in the distance, only for it to vanish before their eyes. Others believe that the ship, or at least some essence of it, still exists, adrift in some unknown dimension, forever trapped between reality and the abyss. To this day, the Gulf of Mexico remains one of the most unpredictable and mysterious stretches of water on Earth. Some claim the spirits of lost sailors still wander the waves, searching for the ship that was taken from them. Others say the marine sulfur queen still drifts beneath the surface, waiting for someone to finally uncover the truth. But one thing is certain, she left port, and never came home. And perhaps, somewhere in the depths, the sea still holds her secrets, unwilling to reveal the fate of those who vanished into its abyss. MV Lyubov Orlova, the ghost ship infested with rats. The sea is home to many mysteries, but few are as unsettling as the MV Lyubov Orlova, a luxury cruise liner that transformed into something out of a nightmare. A vessel left to drift alone, swallowed by the vast Atlantic, carrying only silence and the unknown. But what makes this ship's fate even more chilling is the fact that it did not simply disappear. It became something else entirely. A specter of the sea, rumored to be home to a monstrous infestation of cannibalistic rats, endlessly sailing the currents with no destination, no purpose, and no crew to guide her. To this day, sailors whisper of her existence, warning that she may still be out there, her rusting hull concealing horrors that no one dares to uncover. From luxury to abandonment. Built in 1976, the MV Lyubov Orlova was once a proud Soviet cruise liner, ferrying wealthy passengers to remote Arctic destinations. Named after a famous Russian actress, the ship was a symbol of Soviet elegance, boasting lavish dining halls, grand entertainment rooms, and spacious cabins. For decades, she carried explorers and tourists through some of the world's most breathtaking frozen landscapes, her decks alive with laughter and the clinking of glasses. But as the years passed, her glory faded. By 2010, she had fallen into disrepair, seized for unpaid debts and left to rot in a Canadian harbor. The ship's once opulent interiors decayed in silence, her grand halls now home to rust and peeling paint. A vessel that had once hosted lavish dinners and champagne toasts now stood empty, her engines silent, her future uncertain. That should have been the end of her story. But in 2013, something strange happened. The Lyubov Orlova was sold for scrap and set to be towed to the Dominican Republic. But as she was being hauled across the North Atlantic, disaster struck. The towline snapped, and with no crew aboard to control her, the ship drifted into the open sea, abandoned and completely unclaimed. The Vanishing Act. Adrift and unclaimed, the Lyubov Orlova was lost to the waves. The Canadian government attempted to track her down, but she disappeared into the vast, merciless ocean. Occasionally, faint satellite signals hinted at her presence, drifting farther from land, beyond reach. For months, the ship was spotted by passing vessels, a ghostly silhouette against the horizon, her empty decks exposed to the relentless wind and waves. But as quickly as she appeared, she would vanish again, slipping further into the Atlantic's abyss. Then came the terrifying rumors. The ship of cannibal rats. With no crew aboard, the ship became a floating ruin. And according to some reports, it was not entirely empty. Experts speculated that the only remaining inhabitants were the ship's rats, now trapped, starving, and desperate. With no food supply, they would have turned on each other, breeding generations of savage, cannibalistic rodents. A ghost ship, infested with ravenous creatures, sailing aimlessly across the Atlantic. As panic spread, coastal communities feared the Lyubov Orlova would eventually wash ashore, unleashing a horde of disease-ridden rats. Some claimed that if the ship ever made landfall, its infestation could spread, bringing sickness and destruction to any port it reached. The thought of a derelict vessel, overrun with flesh-eating rats, striking land sent shivers through anyone who heard the tale. But despite the terrifying stories, no one ever truly knew where she was, or if she even remained afloat. Reports began surfacing of strange disturbances in the ocean, sailors who had spotted an unidentified drifting vessel, only for it to vanish into the mist. Some claimed to have heard scratching sounds within the metal hull, as if something was alive inside. But none who investigated ever found conclusive evidence. The legend of the rat-infested ship continued to spread, growing darker with each retelling. Final disappearance. In 2014, a signal detected near Ireland suggested the ship had come dangerously close to land. Yet when ships were sent to investigate, there was nothing. The Lyubov Orlova had vanished again, swallowed by the ocean. Some experts believed she finally sank, dragged to the depths by time and decay, settling on the ocean floor where she would rust away in darkness. Others, however, are not so sure. There have been whispers among sailors and fishermen, accounts of a ship appearing on the horizon, eerily silent, drifting with the waves before vanishing into the fog. Some claim to have heard faint scratching sounds, as if something was moving within the metal hull. Could it be the remnants of the rat colony, still surviving against impossible odds? Or is the Lyubov Orlova doomed to wander the oceans forever, a ghost ship carrying an unseen horror? Some theorists believe the ship still exists somewhere, caught in the endless cycle of maritime myths, never seen for long, always slipping back into legend. Perhaps she is still out there, rusting away, her verminous inhabitants continuing their grisly existence. Or maybe she met a darker fate, disappearing into the depths where even the light of the sun cannot reach, swallowed whole by the sea's eternal grasp. If that is true, she remains one of the greatest maritime mysteries of modern times, a ship with no master, no purpose, and no home. A vessel lost in time, waiting, watching, drifting. And if she is still out there, beware, because no one knows where she will appear next. USS Cyclops, the Bermuda Triangle's greatest mystery. The ocean has always been a place of mystery, but few disappearances have baffled historians and investigators as much as the case of the USS Cyclops. A massive naval vessel, manned by over 300 sailors, vanished without a trace in 1918, swallowed by the sea, leaving behind no wreckage, no survivors, and no answers. To this day, it remains one of the most infamous and chilling disappearances in maritime history, forever tied to the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. What began as a standard military operation soon became a tale of speculation, conspiracy, and a disappearance that still haunts the maritime world. The Final Voyage. March 4, 1918. The USS Cyclops, a 542-foot-long Navy collier, sets sail from Barbados, bound for Baltimore. She is carrying a heavy load of manganese ore, essential for wartime steel production. Her crew? 309 men, seasoned sailors, engineers, and officers, all confident in the strength of their vessel. The Cyclops was no ordinary ship. She was the pride of the U.S. Navy's fleet of colliers, designed to refuel other ships at sea and built to withstand the harshest conditions. Yet, despite her strength, this would be her last voyage. The last known radio transmission from the Cyclops was routine, no distress signals, no calls for help. She simply sailed into the Atlantic and was never seen again. The only clue came from a ship sailing a similar route, whose crew reported seeing the Cyclops eerily drifting off course. Then, nothing. A ship of her size, with such an experienced crew, should have been able to handle nearly any challenge at sea. And yet she was gone, as if she had been plucked from existence. The Vanishing. When the Cyclops failed to arrive in Baltimore, a massive search effort was launched. The Navy combed the ocean, searching thousands of square miles of open water. But they found nothing. No debris. No oil slicks. No bodies. The ship had seemingly disappeared into thin air. How does a vessel of such size, carrying hundreds of men, leave no trace? Theories began to emerge, each more puzzling than the last. Some speculated that a sudden and catastrophic structural failure caused the ship to sink instantly, giving the crew no time to react. Others suggested that she was caught in a fierce storm and capsized. But neither of these explanations accounted for the complete lack of wreckage. A ship of this magnitude, even in the worst of conditions, should have left something behind. Then came the darker theories. Theories and legends. The USS Cyclops vanished within the infamous Bermuda Triangle, a region of the Atlantic Ocean notorious for unexplained disappearances. Some believe that she fell victim to the same mysterious force that has allegedly claimed planes and ships for centuries. Was it an unseen whirlpool? A rogue wave of unimaginable size? Or something far more sinister? Others have suggested the ship was intercepted by enemy forces, possibly a German U-boat attack, given that World War I was still ongoing. But no records indicate such an attack occurred. Then there are those who claim the ship was pulled into an underwater cavern or even abducted by unknown forces, vanishing into another dimension. Adding to the mystery, two of the Cyclops' sister ships, USS Nereus and USS Proteus, also vanished years later, under eerily similar circumstances. Were they all doomed by the same fate? Could these ships have stumbled upon some unknown natural phenomenon, one capable of swallowing entire vessels without a trace? More recent researchers have theorized that the manganese or cargo may have played a role in the disaster. Some suggest that a chemical reaction could have triggered an explosion or released toxic gases, incapacitating the crew before they could even send a distress call. Others argue that the heavy load could have destabilized the ship, causing it to sink rapidly. But again, none of these explanations fully clarify why no wreckage has ever been found. Another possibility is that the ship suffered a critical failure due to metal fatigue. The USS Cyclops had already been in service for years, and some experts argue that the immense weight of the cargo may have put stress on the ship's hull, leading to a catastrophic break. Yet, even if the ship had broken apart, some floating debris should have remained. But none was ever found. A mystery that endures. Over a century later, the disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains unsolved. Despite advancements in sonar and deep-sea exploration, no trace of her has ever been found. The ship, along with her 309 crew members, remains lost to the depths, one of the greatest maritime mysteries of all time. Some say she still sails beneath the waves, trapped in an endless journey. Others believe she will someday be found, revealing secrets long buried by the ocean. But until then, the Cyclops remains an unsolved riddle, a ghost ship lost to the void, and a chilling reminder that the sea never gives up all its secrets. Perhaps, one day, the truth will emerge. But for now, the USS Cyclops remains a legend, drifting forever in the realm of the unknown. If she is still out there, she waits in the silent, dark waters, her fate sealed by an ocean that refuses to give up its dead. SS Warada, the Titanic of the South that vanished. A ship dubbed the Titanic of the South, built for elegance and safety. A vessel that set sail with confidence, only to vanish without a trace. No wreckage. No distress calls. No survivors. The disappearance of the SS Warada remains one of the greatest maritime enigmas in history, a mystery that has endured for over a century, baffling historians, scientists, and maritime experts alike. How could a massive ocean liner, carrying over 200 souls, simply disappear into nothingness? The theories range from the natural to the supernatural, but the truth remains elusive. What began as an engineering marvel quickly transformed into an unsolved mystery, one that continues to haunt the waters off the coast of South Africa. A Voyage to Nowhere. July 27, 1909. The SS Warada, a luxurious passenger liner, departs from Durban, South Africa, en route to Cape Town. On board, 211 passengers and crew, including wealthy businessmen, immigrants seeking a new life, and seasoned sailors. The ship was designed for both comfort and durability, intended to serve the busy trade routes between Europe and Australia. With elegant interiors, spacious cabins, and reinforced hulls, she was meant to be unsinkable, just like the Titanic would be 3 years later. But as she sails into the horizon, something feels off. The last confirmed sighting of the Waratah comes from the cargo ship Clan MacIntyre, which reports seeing her steaming steadily along the coast. There is no indication of distress, no unusual signals. Just another ship sailing toward its destination. But then, she disappears. Completely. She never reaches Cape Town. No distress signals are ever received. The ship simply ceases to exist. It is as if she was wiped from history in an instant. The search for answers. When the Waratah fails to arrive, an immediate search is launched. Ships scour the waters, searching for any sign of the missing vessel. Days turn into weeks. Nothing. No lifeboats. No debris. No oil slicks. It is as if the Waratah was swallowed whole by the ocean. The South African government, desperate for answers, sends out multiple search parties, hoping to locate even a fragment of the lost ship. Yet the silence of the sea remains unbroken. Speculation runs wild. Some believe she was caught in a sudden storm, capsized, and sent straight to the ocean floor. Others suggest an explosion in her boilers, leaving no time for escape. But if that were the case, why was no wreckage ever found? Even the Titanic, which broke apart and sank in the middle of the Atlantic, left a vast debris field. The Waratah left nothing. Some reports even suggest that passing ships searched for bodies floating in the water, but not a single soul was ever found. The complete absence of evidence only deepens the mystery. And then, the theories grow darker. A ship doomed by design? In the days before her disappearance, passengers had reported an eerie instability in the ship. Some claimed she rocked uncomfortably, her top-heavy design making her feel precarious. One man, a former passenger who had disembarked before the final voyage, described the Waratah as a floating coffin, convinced that she would not survive a major storm. His words now seem prophetic. This leads many to believe the ship may have succumbed to her own faulty construction. If her center of gravity was poorly distributed, even a minor shift in weight or a strong wave could have tipped her over, sending her straight to the bottom before anyone could react. Unlike other maritime disasters, where survivors or wreckage at least provide clues, the Waratah's fate remains a ghostly void. Some maritime experts suggest that, in an event of rapid capsizing, the ship's airtight compartments could have caused her to sink so quickly that lifeboats couldn't even be deployed. A vanishing without explanation. For years, search missions were conducted. In 1983, sonar scans identified what seemed to be a shipwreck deep beneath the waves, but later examinations proved inconclusive. Some modern researchers believe powerful underwater currents pulled the Waratah into an uncharted trench, forever sealing her fate in the abyss. Others suggest that the wreck is simply too deep to be found with current technology. Some even propose that the ship may have been dragged further out to sea, far beyond its intended route, vanishing into one of the most unexplored regions of the ocean. But some sailors still whisper of her. There have been claims, unverified, but chilling, of a ghostly ship appearing in the fog along the South African coast. A phantom, identical to the Waratah, sailing endlessly toward a destination she will never reach. Fishermen and sailors alike have sworn to have spotted a large, shadowy vessel in the distance, only for it to vanish without a trace. Some reports even describe hearing distant, ghostly voices carried on the wind, as if the souls of the lost are still calling out for help. Some believe the Warada still lingers, caught in an eternal voyage, reliving her final moments in an endless loop. Others argue that the ship may never be found, not because she was lost, but because she was taken by something beyond human understanding. Did she cross into another dimension? Was she swallowed by a rogue wave so powerful that it erased all evidence of her existence? Or was she claimed by something even stranger, something the ocean refuses to reveal? For now, the SS Warada remains a mystery. A ship that vanished. A story left unfinished. And a chilling reminder that sometimes, the sea does not give back what it takes. Perhaps one day, technology will advance far enough to locate her final resting place. Until then, she sails forever in the legends of the deep, a ghostly specter of the past, waiting for someone to finally uncover the truth. HMS Resolute, the ship that froze and returned. The ocean is relentless. It takes ships, swallows them whole, and rarely gives them back. But sometimes, it does. And when it does, the mystery only deepens. The story of HMS Resolute is unlike any other, a ship abandoned in the Arctic, left to be consumed by ice and time, only to reappear thousands of miles away, perfectly intact. This is not just a ghost ship. This is a ship that defied the odds, and returned from the dead, carrying with it an aura of mystery that lingers even centuries later. A mission into the frozen unknown. 1852. The Arctic remains one of the last uncharted frontiers. Explorers dream of discovering the elusive Northwest Passage, a mythical route through the ice that could change the course of trade and exploration forever. The British Royal Navy launches an ambitious expedition, sending multiple ships, including the HMS Resolute, deep into the frozen wilderness in search of the lost Franklin expedition, which had vanished years earlier. The mission was fraught with peril, as the Arctic's merciless grip had already claimed countless explorers before them. But the Arctic does not forgive trespassers. The ships become trapped in the thickening ice. Months pass. Then years. The men fight to survive in the merciless cold, battling scurvy, starvation, and the ever-growing realization that no rescue may ever come. Supplies dwindle, morale collapses, and the icy prison tightens its hold. With no hope of escape, the crew is forced to make a desperate decision. They abandon ship, leaving the Resolute behind, convinced she will never sail again. A prisoner of the ice, doomed to remain entombed in the Arctic forever. The Arctic had claimed many ships before, and this one seemed destined to join them. But fate had other plans. A ghost ship returns. 1855. Thousands of miles away, off the coast of Baffin Island, American whalers spot something impossible. A fully intact ship, drifting silently through the water. At first, they believe it must be an illusion, a mirage formed by the icy winds and shimmering waves. But as they draw closer, their disbelief turns to awe. It is the HMS Resolute. The ship had somehow freed itself from the Arctic ice and traveled on its own, completely unmanned, across the frigid seas. No crew. No captain. Just an empty, silent ghost ship, moving as if guided by unseen hands. The mystery deepens when the whalers board her. Inside, everything remains eerily untouched. Logbooks, supplies, even furniture, all still in place, as if the crew had only just stepped away. A fire had been prepared in the stove, but was long since burned out. Cups and plates remain neatly arranged, as though awaiting a meal that would never come. But the ship is empty. Silent. A vessel that should not be there, yet here she is. The whalers, astounded by their discovery, towed the ship back to port, and in an unprecedented act of diplomacy, they returned the Resolute to Britain as a gesture of goodwill. The ship, now a legend, resumes service in the Royal Navy, carrying with it an air of mystery. Was she truly abandoned, or did something else, something unseen, sail her back from the dead? But the story does not end there. The legend lives on. Years later, the HMS Resolute is retired and dismantled. But her story refuses to die. From her timbers, the British government crafts something extraordinary, the Resolute Desk. A gift to the United States, the desk is placed in the White House, where it still resides today. Presidents have sat at it, signed historic documents upon it, and pondered the weight of history while resting their hands on the very wood that once braved the Arctic's icy grip. To this day, the desk is a symbol of resilience, of diplomacy, and of a ship that refused to be lost. Some say that when the Resolute was abandoned, something remained behind, something that still lingers within the wood, within the White House itself. Some have reported strange occurrences around the desk, an unexplained coldness, a faint whispering sound when no one else is in the room, as if the ship's story is not yet finished. A ship that should have been lost. A ship that returned. And a mystery that may never be fully explained. The HMS Resolute remains one of the most inexplicable tales of maritime history. How did she break free from the ice? Was it the shifting tides? A rare Arctic phenomenon? Or something far beyond human understanding? Did the spirit of the crew linger, unwilling to let their ship die? To this day, no one knows for sure. All that remains is her legacy, one carved into history, both in legend and in the very wood that now sits in the heart of American power. A reminder that the sea takes what it wants, but sometimes, just sometimes, it gives something back. The Jenny, the crew frozen in time. The sea is vast and merciless. It takes what it wants and gives nothing back. But sometimes, it preserves. It holds on to its secrets, locking them in ice, frozen forever in a moment of eerie stillness. This is the story of the Jenny, a ship whose crew never died, but never lived again. A ghost ship unlike any other, one that sailed through time, carrying the dead who refused to decay. A ship that drifted through the frozen wastelands of the sea, holding on to the last moments of life like a picture trapped beneath glass. A vessel that, long after its final voyage, continued to haunt the frigid waters where it was last seen, drifting eternally, untouched by the passage of time. A discovery locked in ice. 1840. The frigid waters of the Drake Passage, between Antarctica and South America. A whaling vessel, braving the treacherous winds and towering waves, spots something unusual. A ship, trapped in ice, its sails tattered but still standing, as if it had been sailing against time itself. The ship was eerily still, as though waiting to be found, its mast barely peeking out from the surrounding ice. The sight was unsettling, yet mesmerizing, an unnatural monument to something long past, its frozen hull gleaming under the pale, weak sunlight. The crew approaches cautiously, their breath visible in the freezing air. The howling wind whips through the rigging, making the ropes groan as if whispering a warning. As they step aboard, an unnatural silence greets them. The deck is still. The ship's wheel, frozen in place. The cabin doors stiff with frost. There are no fresh footprints. No signs of life. Only the hollow creaks of the wood beneath their boots as they explore the forgotten vessel. The oppressive cold seeps into their bones, making them shiver, not just from the temperature, but from something deeper, something instinctual. And then, they make a discovery that would haunt them forever. Inside the captain's cabin, a man sits at his desk. Pen in hand, logbook open, his final words written with a hand that had long since gone still. May 4, 1823. No food for 71 days. I am the only one left alive. But he was not alive. None of them were. The entire crew remained on board frozen solid. Their faces eerily preserved by the cold, their expressions locked in time, some huddled together for warmth that would never come, some gripping ropes, others staring into the void, as if death had come so quickly they never had a chance to react. There were no signs of a struggle. No signs of sickness. Just a ship filled with men, frozen where they stood, as if the ice had claimed them in an instant. The cold had not just killed them, it had immortalized them, turning them into ghostly statues of a life suddenly interrupted. An unnatural stillness. The whalers moved through the ship, their breath coming in short, nervous gasps. The galley was set for a meal that was never eaten, utensils in place, a pot long frozen solid over an extinguished fire. A crewman, his hands still clenched around a tattered Bible, had seemingly died mid-prayer, his last words lost to the silence of the ice. Every detail was intact, untouched, as though time itself had stopped aboard the Jenny. The most disturbing thing? There was no damage to the ship. No evidence of a storm, no signs of water breach, no torn sails that would suggest a fight against the elements. It was as if the Jenny had simply been placed there, a ship of the dead left adrift in a world that had long forgotten it. The crew, eerily frozen in place, seemed to suggest that death had arrived with no warning, no time to resist. It was as though the ship had sailed into a realm beyond nature, beyond understanding. The silence aboard was deafening, pressing down on the whalers like an invisible weight. A fate worse than sinking. For years, sailors spoke of the Jenny. A ghost ship that drifted through Antarctic waters, untouched by time, carrying a crew that would never sail again. But was the story true? Some historians believe the Jenny was real, her fate sealed by the relentless cold of the Antarctic. Others claim she is merely a legend, a sailor's tale meant to warn of the dangers of the frozen unknown. Could a ship really survive so many years, frozen solid, carried by the ocean's currents like a relic of a past age? And if so, could others be out there, waiting beneath the ice, their stories yet to be uncovered? But one thing remains certain: the sea is a cruel mistress, and some ships never find their way home. Some become more than just wrecks. Some become legends. And some never stop sailing. Even now, there are whispered rumors among sailors of a ship glimpsed through the mist, frozen in time, moving with the current yet never truly alive. There are stories of fishing boats, seeing a shadowy outline on the horizon, only for it to vanish into the fog before they can get close. Of icebreakers finding disturbances in the frozen waters, as if something long buried was shifting just beneath the surface. Some say the Jenny is still out there, sailing forever in an endless drift, caught between life and death, her crew locked in eternal stillness, waiting for someone, anyone, to find them again. Others whisper of eerie echoes beneath the ice, strange noises that defy explanation. Could it be the ship, trapped in some limbo, its frozen sailors waiting for rescue that will never come? Or is the Jenny simply one of many mysteries the ocean refuses to reveal? The Jenny, they say, still drifts among the ice, waiting for the next unfortunate soul to find her, to step aboard, and to read those final chilling words, written by a man who had already become part of the frozen dead. Perhaps the sea never truly let go of the Jenny. Perhaps it never will. And perhaps, somewhere out there, another lost ship sails through the frozen abyss, its story yet to be told. SS Arctic, the luxury liner that left no survivors. Luxury. Prestige. Safety. These were the promises of the SS Arctic, a grand passenger liner that symbolized the peak of 19th-century maritime travel. But on one fateful voyage, all those promises were shattered. The ship did not simply sink, it became one of the most infamous disasters in maritime history. A tragedy marked by betrayal, cowardice, and a horrifying fate that left no innocent souls alive. What should have been a routine voyage across the Atlantic turned into a nightmare that would forever haunt the maritime world. A disaster in the making. September 27, 1854. The SS Arctic, a 284-foot luxury steamship, was making her routine journey from Liverpool to New York, carrying over 400 passengers and crew. Wealthy travelers filled her lavish cabins, while hardworking immigrants sought a new life across the Atlantic. Designed to be both fast and unsinkable, the Arctic was a marvel of engineering. She boasted luxurious accommodations, cutting-edge technology, and an iron-reinforced hull that was believed to withstand even the harshest of conditions. But that illusion of security would soon be shattered. On that fateful afternoon, disaster struck. Off the coast of Newfoundland, the Arctic collided with the Vesta, a much smaller French vessel. At first, the damage seemed minor. The Arctic's crew believed she would stay afloat, while the Vesta, being the smaller ship, was expected to suffer the greater loss. But within minutes, it became clear that the unthinkable was happening. The Arctic was sinking. The collision had created a fatal wound beneath the waterline. Seawater rushed into the ship's hull with terrifying speed. The passengers, at first unaware of the severity of the situation, continued with their activities, some enjoying tea in the saloon, others strolling the deck, laughing at the idea that such a mighty vessel could be in danger. But as the ship listed, panic gripped the Arctic, and the terrifying reality set in. Screams echoed across the decks as families clung to one another, realizing there was no escape. The ship, once a beacon of comfort, had turned into a prison of impending doom. Chaos at sea. Panic spread through the decks. The ship's captain, James Luce, fought to keep order, but the situation spiraled out of control. Lifeboats were limited, and as the ship began to list, it became clear that there weren't enough to save everyone. The realization sent waves of hysteria through the passengers. Desperate hands clawed at railings, pleading voices begged for salvation, but the cold sea had already decided their fate. But the greatest betrayal was yet to come. The crew, in a shocking act of cowardice, abandoned the passengers. Instead of upholding the maritime tradition of women and children first, the sailors and officers rushed for the lifeboats, leaving behind families, women, and children to fend for themselves. Wealthy men bribed their way aboard, while desperate mothers begged for mercy, only to be ignored. Captain Luce, devastated and helpless, tried to save as many as he could, but it was futile. The lifeboats drifted away, half empty, carrying only those strong enough to fight for a place. The cries of those left behind echoed across the ocean, a haunting chorus of desperation and fear. A father, clutching his daughter, was seen waving frantically toward the receding lifeboats, his voice hoarse from screaming. A mother, holding her infant close to her chest, sobbed as icy water lapped at her feet. But there was no salvation. The Arctic, once a symbol of luxury, was now a death trap. Within hours she slipped beneath the waves, taking hundreds of souls with her. The once proud vessel that had promised safety and grandeur was now nothing more than a watery grave. The Atlantic, merciless and vast, swallowed her whole, erasing her existence as if she had never been. A legacy of horror. Of the more than 400 people aboard, only 85 survived, all of them men. Every woman and child perished, making the Arctic one of the most shameful maritime disasters in history. The survivors, many of whom had abandoned their duty, faced public outrage upon their return. They were met not with sympathy, but with disgust. Newspapers condemned them. Families of the lost demanded justice. But no justice was ever served. No one was held accountable. The tragedy was buried beneath the waves, just like the ship itself. In the years that followed, stories of the Arctic's doomed voyage spread far and wide. Sailors swore that on quiet nights, near the site of her wreck, eerie cries could be heard carried on the wind, the ghostly wails of those who had been abandoned, forever lost to the deep. Some claimed to see a spectral ship rising from the mist, its decks filled with shadowy figures staring out over the water, waiting for a rescue that would never come. A ship doomed to relive its final moments, forever cursed to sail through the dark waters of the Atlantic. Some fishermen spoke of strange disturbances in the water, a sensation of unseen eyes watching from the depths. Others swore they had seen the outlines of a grand steamship gliding silently through the fog, its ghostly silhouette flickering before vanishing once more into the darkness. Was it merely a trick of the light, or was the Arctic still out there, a phantom of the sea, forever searching for a harbor she would never reach? To this day, the SS Arctic remains a ghostly reminder of human failure, of promises broken, of selfishness triumphing over honor. The wreckage was never fully recovered, her remains hidden beneath the dark depths of the Atlantic, a graveyard for the innocent souls betrayed by those who should have protected them. The tragedy remains a lesson, a warning whispered by the ocean itself, that no ship, no matter how grand, is immune to the fury of the sea. Some say that if you stand by the water's edge on a still night and listen closely, you can hear them, the whispers of the forgotten, the echoes of a disaster that should never have happened. A warning from the past, carried forever by the sea, forever etched in the rolling waves, forever haunting the souls who dare to listen. SS Kamloops, the shipwreck with a preserved corpse. The sea does not always take its dead. Sometimes it keeps them, preserves them, turns them into silent watchers beneath the waves. Few shipwrecks in history hold as chilling a secret as the SS Kamloops, a vessel that vanished into the icy depths of Lake Superior, only to be found decades later, eerily intact, with a crew member still on board. A shipwreck lost to time, yet somehow eerily untouched by it. A relic of tragedy, suspended in the dark, waiting for those who dare to disturb its slumber. A haunting reminder that even in death, some souls never leave their ship. A routine journey. A ship lost without a trace. And a body that never truly died. The vanishing of the Kamloops. December 6, 1927. The SS Kamloops, a Canadian steamship, was making what should have been a routine late-season voyage across Lake Superior, hauling a cargo of machinery, tar paper, and food supplies. The ship and her crew of 22 were experienced, accustomed to the harsh conditions of the Great Lakes. But the winter that year was unforgiving. As temperatures plummeted and storms brewed, the Kamloops sailed into the unknown, and was never seen again. Other vessels reported blizzard conditions. Some claimed they had seen the Kamloops struggling against the waves, its smokestack barely visible through the thick snow. One sailor swore he saw a flash of light, as if the ship had been struck by something unseen before vanishing into the storm. But then, nothing. No distress signals. No debris. Just silence. The ship had simply disappeared. The search lasted weeks. But Lake Superior, known for swallowing ships whole, kept its secret. With no wreckage, no survivors, and no answers, the Kamloops was declared lost. The families of the crew were left with nothing but speculation. Had she capsized in the storm? Had she hit an ice floe? Or had something even stranger happened? Rumors swirled among sailors. Some claimed the Kamloops had been cursed from the start, doomed by an unseen force lurking in the depths of Lake Superior. Others believed she had somehow slipped into another realm, swallowed not by water, but by something beyond human comprehension. Stories of eerie lights, strange whispers carried on the wind, and ghostly figures glimpsed just below the lake's surface only added to the legend. For 50 years, the Kamloops remained missing. Until, one day, she was found. The watcher beneath the waves. In 1977, a team of divers exploring the depths of Lake Superior made a shocking discovery. Resting at the bottom, 260 feet below the surface, was the SS Kamloops. Her hull was intact. Her cargo still stacked neatly inside her hold. Time had forgotten her, yet she remained, eerily preserved in the darkness. There were no signs of distress, no violent damage, just a ship, frozen in time, waiting to be found. And then, they saw him. Floating just outside the engine room, suspended in the freezing darkness, was a body. Perfectly preserved, as if he had only just drowned. His skin, waxy and pale, had taken on an unnatural appearance due to the cold, oxygen-deprived waters of the lake. His eyes, open, empty, yet hauntingly lifelike, seemed to watch the divers as they approached. His body, weightless in the water, drifted eerily, moving ever so slightly as if he were still alive. A silent sentinel of the deep, forever trapped within his watery grave. The legend was born. The body, now known as Grandpa, remains there to this day. Over the years, divers have reported unsettling encounters, strange sensations of being watched, tools mysteriously moved, and bubbles that seem to drift in unnatural patterns. Some say Grandpa reaches out, as if trying to speak. Others claim they've seen his hand float toward them before sinking back into the dark. More than one diver has surfaced gasping for breath, claiming to have felt something brush against them, something cold, something unseen. One particularly chilling tale speaks of a diver who turned to leave the wreck, only to feel a firm grip on his shoulder. Whipping around, he found nothing. But the imprint of fingers remained on his wetsuit, like an unseen force had tried to keep him there, to make him stay beneath the waves. Another story tells of a group of divers who left the ship, only to find their air tanks had mysteriously lost pressure, as if something had drained them while they weren't looking. The Eternal Guardian. Unlike the ocean, Lake Superior is a freshwater body with temperatures just above freezing. These conditions have turned Grandpa into one of the most well-preserved human remains in any shipwreck. His eerie presence has made the Kamloops one of the most infamous dive sites in the world, a place where history, tragedy, and something unexplainable linger in the depths. What truly happened to the Kamloops and her crew may never be known. Some believe a freak storm took her down so quickly that the crew had no time to react. Others whisper that something far more sinister claimed the ship, that the lake itself chose to keep her. Some even speculate that the ship never truly sank, but rather was pulled into a realm between the living and the dead, caught in an eternal limbo. But one thing is certain, she still holds her dead. And for those brave enough to visit, the past does not rest easy beneath the waves. Some divers claim that if you stay too long, you begin to feel something, an overwhelming weight, a presence lingering just beyond the light of your torch. The sensation that something is waiting, watching, and that if you're not careful, you too might join Grandpa, forever preserved in the silent, endless dark. And so, the Kamloops remains where she fell, her hull unbroken, her secrets intact, and her ghostly guardian watching from the depths. A reminder that not all who sail into the unknown ever return, and some never leave at all. Octavius, the 18th century ghost ship found adrift. The sea is a vast and merciless expanse, swallowing ships whole, erasing their stories from history. But sometimes, it does something even more terrifying, it sends them back. One of the oldest and most haunting ghost ship legends belongs to the Octavius, an 18th century vessel that reappeared decades after it was lost, with its crew still on board, frozen in time. A doomed voyage. A ship swallowed by the Arctic. And a terrifying discovery that would send shivers down the spines of all who dared to hear it. A mystery that remains unanswered, A legend whispered among sailors who claimed the Octavius still roams the desolate waters, forever trapped between life and death. The vanishing of the Octavius. The year was 1761. The Octavius, a merchant vessel, set sail from England, bound for China. Aboard were her captain, a seasoned navigator, his crew, and a handful of passengers, including, it is said, the captain's wife and child. It was meant to be a long but profitable journey, one that had been taken countless times before by merchant ships. Months later, after successfully reaching China, the Octavius began her return voyage to England. But rather than taking the safer, well-established route, the captain made a fateful decision, one that would seal the ship's doom. He set a course for the fabled Northwest Passage, an uncharted Arctic route that, if successful, would cut weeks off their journey. It was a gamble, but one that promised great rewards. But the Arctic is not merciful. As the Octavius sailed into the frozen north, the temperatures plummeted. Ice formed on the decks, the wind howled through the rigging, and the once open waters turned into an icy prison. The sun disappeared for days at a time, leaving the ship to drift under an eternal twilight. The crew, accustomed to hardship but unprepared for the Arctic's brutal grip, fought against the elements, but it was a losing battle. One by one, the crew succumbed to the freezing cold. Some clung to life longer than others, their breath turning to frost as they huddled in the dark. Food supplies dwindled. The howling winds outside became the only sound, a ceaseless, ghostly wail that accompanied their slow, inevitable fate. The captain, desperate to save his people, scribbled in his log, documenting their struggle until his ink froze and his fingers could no longer grip the quill. There were no distress signals. No survivors. Just silence. The ship was never seen again. It was as if the Arctic had swallowed her whole, refusing to give back what it had taken. But 13 years later she returned. A ghostly return. For 13 years, the Octavius was nothing more than a ghost story, until 1775, when a whaling vessel, the Herald, spotted an unknown ship drifting aimlessly off the coast of Greenland. Curious, the crew of the Herald approached the silent vessel. Her sails were tattered, barely clinging to the masts. The wood of her hull was weathered and splintered, but there was no sign of battle, no evidence of a violent end. The ship should not have been there. And yet, she was. As the whalers climbed aboard, a cold, eerie stillness greeted them. The ship smelled of ice and decay. The decks were covered in frost, footprints long since faded. There were no signs of life, no movement. And then, they found something even more horrifying than they could have imagined. The crew of the Octavius was still on board. Frozen solid. Inside the captain's cabin, the Herald's men found the captain himself, still seated at his desk, his logbook open, pen in hand. His final entry? 1762, 1 year after the ship had originally vanished. The Octavius had been lost in the ice for over a decade, drifting aimlessly with its ghostly crew, preserved by the Arctic cold. The sailors who had suffered through that endless winter had perished in their positions, frozen in time like statues carved from ice. One sailor, seated on his bunk, still had a terrified expression locked upon his frozen face, as though he had seen something in his final moments that chilled him even more than the cold. Another was found gripping a lantern, his fingers blackened by frostbite, as though he had been waiting for the light to return. The captain's wife and child were found huddled together beneath heavy blankets, as if even in their final moments, she had tried to protect her child from the inevitable. The sailors of the Herald, horrified by the ghastly discovery, took what little they could from the frozen ship and fled, leaving the Octavius to continue its lonely, endless voyage through the Arctic wastes. A mystery lost to time. What became of the Octavius remains unknown. Some say she continued drifting, forever lost in the Arctic wasteland. Others claim she finally sank, pulled beneath the ice by the merciless sea, swallowed whole like so many other doomed vessels. And then there are those who whisper that she still sails, appearing in the mist to those who dare to venture too far north. There have been whispers among Arctic explorers of a ship seen cutting through the fog, moving as if guided by unseen hands. Some claim to have heard strange echoes on the wind, the sound of frozen wood creaking, of distant whispers carried through the icy void. A ship that should not be there, yet always is. A ship that vanished. A crew frozen in time. And a final, chilling question: did they truly die, or were they trapped, waiting, forever cursed to sail the icy waters of the north? Even now, sailors tell tales of an old, spectral ship glimpsed in the mist, her tattered sails barely visible through the thick Arctic fog. Some who claim to have seen her speak of an overwhelming sense of dread, of whispers on the wind that seemed to call out to them, beckoning them closer. Is the Octavius still out there, lost in time, carrying her ghostly crew on an eternal voyage, forever seeking a passage she will never find? Perhaps, just perhaps, the Arctic never let go of the Octavius, and never will. The ghost fleet of Truk Lagoon, the sunken war graves. The ocean is a graveyard. Beneath the waves, lost ships and forgotten souls rest in the deep, their stories buried in the silence of the sea. But in one place the past does not rest. A fleet of warships lies beneath the waters of Truk Lagoon, frozen in time, a haunting reminder of one of World War II's most devastating battles. But these wrecks are not just rusting metal. They are graves. And some say the souls of the men who perished here still linger, trapped between the world of the living and the dead. Some divers swear they have heard echoes of the past, whispers, ghostly calls, and the eerie clang of metal where no living hands remain to move it. A wartime paradise turned into a battlefield. A fleet annihilated in a single strike. And an underwater graveyard that refuses to be forgotten, where the ghosts of war seem to still patrol the depths. The attack on Truk Lagoon. February 17, 1944. Truk Lagoon, a tropical atoll in the Pacific, was Japan's most heavily fortified naval base outside of the homeland. Known as the Gibraltar of the Pacific, it was the heart of the Imperial Japanese Navy's operations in the region. Dozens of warships, submarines, cargo vessels, and thousands of men called this place home. For years, it had been untouchable. But that was about to change. The U.S. military launched Operation Hailstone, a massive aerial assault designed to cripple Japan's presence in the Pacific. For 2 relentless days, American bombers rained destruction upon Truk Lagoon. Ships exploded into fireballs, their twisted hulls sinking into the depths. Japanese planes, attempting to defend the base, were shot out of the sky. Soldiers scrambled to escape the inferno, but there was nowhere to run. The once mighty fleet was obliterated. When the smoke cleared, Truk Lagoon had become a mass grave, with over 60 ships and hundreds of aircraft resting at the bottom of the sea. Thousands of men had died, their bodies claimed by the ocean, their final screams lost beneath the waves. The haunting beneath the waves. Decades later, divers began exploring the wreckage. What they found was chilling. The ships, though encrusted in coral and marine life, remained eerily intact. Inside the cargo holds, tanks, artillery, and fighter planes sat untouched, frozen in time. In the mess halls, dishes were still set on tables, as if the sailors had been interrupted mid-meal. Personal belongings, helmets, boots, even handwritten letters, remained where they had been left. It was as though time had simply stopped, leaving everything exactly as it had been in those final moments before disaster struck. And then, there were the human remains. Bones still rest inside the wrecks, forever entwined with the rusting metal. Skull fragments peek out from beneath layers of silt. Gas masks lie beside the skeletal remains of men who had tried, and failed, to escape. Some divers have reported hearing strange sounds, muffled voices, whispers that seem to come from the wrecks themselves. Others claim they have seen shadowy figures moving through the water, glimpses of ghostly sailors still performing their duties, trapped in an endless cycle of war and death. Equipment failures are common here. Divers' lights flicker and fail without reason, oxygen tanks inexplicably deplete faster than normal, and sudden, overpowering waves of dread overcome even the most seasoned explorers. One of the most infamous wrecks is the Fujikawa Maru, a cargo ship that carried fighter planes in its hold. Divers have reported eerie sensations when swimming through its corridors, as if unseen eyes are watching them. Some have claimed their equipment malfunctions near the ship, as if something, or someone, does not want them there. More unsettling still are the stories of divers feeling an unseen hand press against them, only to turn and find nothing but darkness and the cold embrace of the deep. A restless battlefield. Truk Lagoon is now one of the world's most famous diving sites, a place where history lies preserved beneath the sea. But it is also a war grave, a site where thousands of souls met a violent end. Many believe the spirits of the dead still linger, unable, or unwilling, to leave their final resting place. The wrecks, though silent, seem to hum with unseen energy, as though the ghosts of the men who perished here are still waiting, still standing watch over the ships that carried them into their final battle. Some believe that disturbing these wrecks brings bad luck, that the spirits of the lost will follow those who trespass upon their grave. There are reports of divers experiencing night terrors after visiting Truk Lagoon, dreams filled with the sound of air raid sirens, the roar of explosions, and ghostly voices calling out in languages they do not understand. Is it simply the weight of history that makes Truk Lagoon so unsettling? Or is something else at work beneath the waves? Whatever the truth, one thing is certain: the ghost fleet of Truk Lagoon is more than just a collection of sunken ships. It is a battlefield frozen in time, a place where the past refuses to die, and where the echoes of war still whisper through the deep. Those who dare to enter its depths do not leave unchanged. For some, the spirits of the lagoon are more than just a legend. They are watching. And they are waiting. USS Scorpion, the nuclear submarine that vanished. The ocean is a place of secrets, a vast and silent expanse where even the most advanced vessels can vanish without a trace. The USS Scorpion was one of the United States Navy's most formidable submarines, built for stealth, strength, and nuclear warfare. But in 1968, she embarked on a mission from which she would never return. What followed was one of the most perplexing and controversial disappearances in naval history, a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. A cutting-edge war machine lost beneath the waves. A final transmission that hinted at disaster. And a wreck that raised more questions than answers, leaving behind only whispers and speculation. The Last Voyage. May 1968. The USS Scorpion, a skipjack-class nuclear submarine, was returning home to Norfolk, Virginia, after a mission in the Mediterranean. She carried a crew of 99 men, all highly trained, all experienced in the dangerous art of underwater warfare. The journey was meant to be routine. The Scorpion had successfully completed operations and was expected to return safely. But somewhere in the depths of the Atlantic, something went horribly wrong. The last known message from the submarine was received on May 21, 1968. A routine transmission, nothing out of the ordinary. Then silence. The USS Scorpion never arrived in Norfolk. Days passed. No response. No distress call. Just a void where a powerful nuclear submarine had once been. The Navy launched a massive search operation. For months, they scoured the Atlantic, desperately trying to locate any sign of the missing vessel. But the sea guards its secrets well. It wasn't until October, 5 months after the Scorpion's disappearance, that the wreck was finally found, resting 11,000 feet below the surface, deep in the dark abyss of the ocean. The wreckage and the theories. The submarine had been torn apart. Its hull was broken into several pieces, scattered across the seafloor. The damage was catastrophic, far beyond what a routine mechanical failure could have caused. There were no survivors. But the biggest mystery was, what had happened? The U.S. Navy conducted an investigation, but the official explanation was vague at best. They suggested a possible torpedo malfunction, one that may have detonated inside the submarine. Some reports suggested that a crew member had fired a practice torpedo that circled back and struck the vessel. Others believed the Scorpion had been struck by an enemy force, a Cold War casualty lost in secret conflict. Some whispered of Soviet involvement, a deadly underwater confrontation never acknowledged by history. There were reports that the Scorpion had been shadowed by Soviet submarines just days before her disappearance, fueling speculation that an unseen battle had taken place beneath the waves. Some accounts even claimed that intercepted communications hinted at a hushed-up military incident, one that neither side wanted the world to know about. If the Scorpion had been targeted, it would have been an act of war, one that neither nation could afford to admit. And then, there are those who claim something even stranger occurred. The Scorpion's final transmissions hinted at an unidentified object in the water. Some believe the submarine encountered something unknown, something not of this world. Could the crew have seen something they weren't supposed to? Did the ocean itself, vast and unexplored, claim the Scorpion for reasons beyond human understanding? Some accounts speak of an unusual sonar reading detected shortly before the submarine's final transmission, an anomaly that defied explanation, a presence in the depths that was never identified. Some who study the ocean's mysteries speculate that the Scorpion may have encountered an unidentified underwater object, something not built by human hands. A silent grave. To this day, the USS Scorpion remains at the bottom of the Atlantic, her crew entombed in the silent depths. The U.S. government has never released a definitive cause for her loss, fueling speculation and conspiracy theories for over half a century. The wreckage still holds secrets, trapped beneath crushing pressure, hidden in eternal darkness. Divers and underwater exploration teams have visited the wreck, but the answers remain elusive. Some say the damage suggests an internal explosion, others believe external forces played a role. The only certainty is that the ocean has kept her secret well. In recent years, technological advancements have allowed for more detailed examinations of the wreck, yet the official reports continue to offer no concrete explanations. Some divers have claimed that strange sounds can be heard near the wreckage, low-frequency hums and metallic echoes that seem to come from deep within the abyss. Is it merely the shifting of the ocean floor, or is something else at play? Was it an accident? A Soviet attack? A force beyond human comprehension? Whatever the truth, the Scorpion's fate is a stark reminder of the ocean's unforgiving nature, of the vessels swallowed whole, the sailors who never return, and the mysteries that will never be solved. The silent graveyard of the Scorpion serves as both a warning and an enigma, a chilling testament to the unknown forces lurking beneath the waves. And perhaps, even now, somewhere deep below the surface, her crew still waits in the dark, trapped in the final moments of their doomed voyage, forever lost in the abyss. Their final fate remains a mystery, buried beneath the crushing weight of the ocean, where only the dead can hear the echoes of what truly happened on that fateful day in 1968. SS Neuronic, the ship that sent messages from the deep. The sea has a way of taking ships without warning, swallowing them whole, leaving behind only unanswered questions. But sometimes the lost call back. The SS Neronic, a British steamship, disappeared in 1893 without a trace, no wreckage, no survivors. And then, chillingly, messages began to surface, bottles drifting ashore, carrying the final words of men doomed to the abyss. Messages that seemed to come from nowhere, bearing the voices of those lost beneath the waves, desperate to tell the world of their fate. A ship that vanished. A crew reaching out from the depths. And a mystery that has never been solved, forever haunting the Atlantic's restless waters, whispering its secrets to those who dare to listen. The departure and the vanishing. The SS Neronic set sail from Liverpool on February 11, 1893, bound for New York. She was a state-of-the-art cargo and passengers ship, operated by the White Star Line, the same company that would later launch the Titanic. Her journey across the Atlantic was supposed to be routine. On board were 74 souls, 52 crew members and 22 cattlemen tasked with tending to the livestock in her holds. The weather was stable, the sea relatively calm. There was no reason to expect anything but a safe arrival. But the Neronic never arrived. She was last seen 2 days into her voyage, spotted by another vessel, steaming steadily westward. And then, silence. Days passed, then weeks. No distress signals. No debris. No survivors. It was as if the ocean had simply swallowed her whole. The White Star Line, desperate for answers, launched an extensive search, but nothing was found. The vast Atlantic had taken yet another ship into its cold embrace, leaving only speculation in its wake. It seemed the Neronic had been lost to the deep, another casualty of the merciless ocean. Until the messages arrived. The messages from nowhere. In March 1893, a bottle washed ashore in New Jersey. Inside was a note, written in a hurried, frantic hand. SS Neronic. February 19, 1893. Mid-Atlantic. We are sinking. No help in sight. God have mercy on us. The message was signed simply, John Olson, Cattleman. Shortly after, another bottle was found, this time on the coast of Ireland. The note inside read, SS Neronic. February 19th. The ship is going down. There is no time. Tell my wife and mother I love them. More messages followed, each bearing the same date, the same desperation. The handwriting varied, the words urgent, written in the final moments of a ship's doom. But there was one problem. No one could prove their authenticity. Some believed they were cruel hoaxes, written by those seeking attention. Others were convinced they were real, final messages from doomed men, cast into the sea in a desperate attempt to leave some record of their fate. But what had happened to the Neronic? No storms were reported along her route. No distress calls were ever received. If she had struck an iceberg or suffered an explosion, surely some wreckage would have been found. But the ocean yielded nothing. No floating debris, no lifeboats adrift, just an eerie, empty silence where a ship once sailed. Theories began to swirl. Some speculated that a rogue wave had struck her, capsizing the ship so suddenly that no one had time to react. Others suggested that a fire or internal explosion had engulfed her, leaving the crew unable to signal for help. More chillingly, there were whispers of something unnatural, an unseen force that took the ship without warning, dragging it into the depths before a single distress call could be sent. Could something more sinister have been at play? A force beyond human understanding, lurking beneath the waves? A mystery that endures. To this day, the fate of the SS Neronic remains unknown. Did she fall victim to a freak accident, swallowed in an instant? Was there a fire, a mechanical failure, something that sent her plunging beneath the waves before help could arrive? Or was there something even stranger, something beyond our understanding? No wreckage has ever been discovered. No survivors ever found. All that remains are the eerie messages that drifted ashore. Messages that may have been the final words of lost men, their voices carried by the currents, whispering their fate to a world that could do nothing to save them. Some say that, on foggy nights, the spirits of the Neuronic's crew can still be heard calling through the mist, their cries echoing over the water. Others claim that ghostly lights have been seen far out at sea, flickering in the darkness like the final signal of a ship long lost. Fishermen have reported hearing faint voices carried by the wind, voices that seem to call out for help, only to vanish into the night. Whether the messages were real or an elaborate hoax, the mystery of the SS Neuronic remains unsolved, its fate hidden beneath the waves, its story whispered by the tides. Perhaps the Neuronic still lies out there, somewhere in the endless dark of the Atlantic, her secrets sealed forever beneath the waves. Or maybe, just maybe, the ocean is still carrying her lost crew's final words, waiting for someone to listen. And if you ever walk along the shore and find a bottle resting in the sand, be careful before you open it. Because some messages are never meant to be read. MV Raifukumaru, the Japanese ghost ship that sent a final plea. The ocean is a vast, unforgiving force, swallowing ships without a trace, leaving only silence where life once was. But sometimes, before the sea takes them, the lost send a final message, a desperate cry for help that echoes long after they are gone. The MV Raifukumaru, a Japanese freighter, vanished in 1925 under circumstances as mysterious as they were terrifying. But before she disappeared forever, she sent one last transmission. And its chilling words have haunted maritime history ever since. A ship lost at sea. A crew that begged for help. And a final, cryptic message that raised more questions than answers. A warning from the depths, one that still lingers in the minds of those who dare to sail the same waters. A ghostly plea that leaves us questioning whether the ocean claimed them, or something far worse. The voyage into the unknown. April 1925. The MV Raifukumaru, a Japanese cargo vessel, left Boston Harbor, bound for Hamburg, Germany. She was a sturdy, well-maintained ship, manned by an experienced crew. The weather was fair, the Atlantic stretching endlessly before them, promising a smooth passage. But as the days passed, the calm waters turned treacherous. A storm was brewing, one unlike anything the crew had ever faced before. The seas became restless. The wind howled through the rigging. The waves grew taller, more violent. What had begun as a promising voyage quickly descended into chaos. The crew fought against the storm, desperately trying to keep the ship on course, but the forces of nature were relentless. It was then that the SS Homeric, a British passenger liner, picked up a distress call. The Raifukumaru was in trouble. But the message they received was unlike any ordinary SOS. The crew's final words were chilling. Danger like a dagger now. Come quick. And then, silence. The Homeric, following the distress signal, raced toward the last known location of the Raifukumaru. But when they arrived, there was nothing. No ship. No debris. No survivors. The Raifukumaru was gone, as if she had been erased from existence. A disappearance without explanation. Search efforts found nothing, no wreckage, no floating cargo, no bodies. The ocean had swallowed her whole. The lack of any visible cause for her disappearance only fueled speculation. Had the storm claimed her, pulling her beneath the waves before anyone could react? If so, why was there no debris? Had a rogue wave capsized the ship so quickly that the crew never stood a chance? Some sailors believed the ship had met an even stranger fate. The Bermuda Triangle was mentioned, despite the ship being far from its reach. Others whispered of an unseen force that took the vessel, something lurking beneath the waves, waiting for its next victim. The Atlantic is filled with legends of ghost ships, of vessels lost in time, reappearing decades later with no crew aboard. Had the Raifukumaru suffered the same fate? Or was something more sinister at work? And what did the cryptic message mean? Danger like a dagger now. What had the crew seen in their final moments? What horror had they faced that could not be described, only warned against? The words hinted at something sudden, something sharp, something lethal. Some theorists suggest they encountered an unknown phenomenon, something unnatural lurking in the depths, something capable of wiping out a ship in an instant. But the ocean kept its secrets. The legacy of the lost. The disappearance of the Raifukumaru remains one of maritime history's most unsettling mysteries. The ship, her crew, and whatever fate they met have never been found. To this day, sailors and historians alike wonder what really happened on that doomed voyage. Was it just a powerful storm that sent them to the depths? Or did they encounter something far more terrifying? There have been reports, over the years, of strange sights in the waters where the Raifukumaru vanished. Unexplained flashes of light, ghostly ships appearing in the mist, shadowy figures spotted moving along empty decks. Some say the Raifukumaru still sails, doomed to drift forever, her crew eternally trapped in a moment of fear. Others believe that their cries for help still echo through the waves, an eternal distress call with no hope of rescue. Some who have sailed through the area claim to have felt an eerie presence, an inexplicable sense of dread, as if being watched. Fishermen tell of hearing strange voices on the wind, whispers carried from nowhere. And there are those who swear that, on stormy nights, radio operators pick up strange, garbled transmissions, distorted voices crying out, repeating a desperate plea for help. Could it be the final echoes of the Raifukumaru, still reaching out from beyond the grave? The ocean does not always give back what it takes. But sometimes, it leaves behind a whisper. And for those who hear it, the final words of the Raifukumaru still echo across the waves, a haunting reminder that some mysteries are never meant to be solved. Perhaps, somewhere out in the endless blue, the ship still lingers, waiting for someone to heed its final call for help. Or perhaps, the lost crew of the Raifukumaru are still out there, trapped between the past and the present, forever searching for salvation that will never come. The Sea Bird, the 18th century mystery ship that was found empty. The ocean has swallowed countless ships, leaving only legends in their wake. Some vanish entirely, never to be seen again. Others return, adrift, abandoned, with no sign of the souls that once inhabited them. The Sea Bird was one such vessel, a merchant ship that set sail with a full crew but was found eerily intact, yet completely deserted. What happened aboard remains one of the earliest and most perplexing maritime mysteries in American history. A ship found eerily adrift. A missing crew. And an unsettling discovery that has puzzled historians for centuries. A ghostly enigma that lingers in maritime folklore, a tale that refuses to be forgotten. The Voyage and the Vanishing. The Sea Bird was a merchant brig operating along the American coastline in the mid-1700s. She was well known, often seen making the journey between the Caribbean and the American colonies, carrying cargo and supplies. Her captain, John Durham, was an experienced sailor, and his crew was seasoned. There was no reason to believe that anything out of the ordinary would happen when the ship left port on its fateful journey. Days later, however, the Sea Bird was spotted off the coast of Rhode Island. Something was wrong. She drifted aimlessly, her sails tattered but still partially raised. No distress signals had been sent. No crew members could be seen on deck. From a distance, she looked abandoned. When a boarding party arrived to investigate, they were met with an eerie sight. The ship was intact. There was no sign of struggle, no indication of a sudden disaster. The crew's belongings were still in place. A meal had been left on the table, half eaten, as if the crew had been interrupted in the middle of their daily routine. The ship's log was missing, offering no clues as to what had occurred. The only living thing left aboard was the ship's dog, wandering the deck alone, seemingly unbothered by the eerie emptiness surrounding it. The ship's wheel was lashed in place, as though the crew had been actively steering her just moments before they vanished. The cargo remained untouched, barrels of goods neatly stacked below deck, untouched by looters or storms. The ship itself was in near-perfect condition, showing no signs of battle or violent weather. There were no signs of illness, no hurriedly abandoned lifeboats, no indication that the crew had planned to leave. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. Theories and speculation. What had happened to the crew of the Sea Bird? No storms had been reported in the area. The ship showed no damage, no sign of a pirate attack, no evidence of disease. It was as if the crew had simply stepped off into the sea and vanished. One of the most enduring theories is that the crew abandoned ship in a panic, perhaps believing the vessel was sinking due to an unseen leak. But if that were the case, why would they leave without taking supplies or lowering the lifeboat properly? And why had no survivors ever been found? Could they have been tricked into abandoning the ship under false pretenses, perhaps by a phantom threat only they had perceived? Some believe the crew may have fallen victim to foul play, a mutiny or an unexpected attack from a rival vessel, though no signs of violence supported this theory. Others have speculated that an unseen force, a supernatural presence, may have taken the crew, leaving behind only the ship as a spectral reminder of their fate. Then there are the more bizarre theories. Did the Sea Bird drift into another realm, one where the crew was taken while the ship remained behind? Did they fall prey to an unknown sea creature, dragged overboard before they could send for help? Could they have stumbled upon something not meant to be seen, something so terrifying that they willingly abandoned their ship to escape it? The legacy of the Sea Bird. The Sea Bird was eventually salvaged and put back into service, but her original crew was never found. No further clues ever surfaced, and no definitive answers were ever given. The ship's name has since faded into legend, but the mystery remains. For years after, sailors spoke of strange happenings near the area where the Sea Bird was found. Ghostly figures seen walking the decks of distant ships, whispering voices heard over calm waters, and inexplicable shadows moving beneath the waves. Some claim to have seen a spectral version of the Sea Bird itself, appearing through the fog, only to vanish as quickly as it came. The Sea Bird stands as one of the first recorded ghost ship stories in American history, a chilling reminder that the ocean does not always give up its secrets. And to this day, sailors whisper of ships found abandoned, drifting on the waves, waiting for someone to uncover the truth of what really happened to those who vanished without a trace. Could the Sea Bird's crew still be out there, lost between time and tide, searching for a way home? The Sam Rattlelangi PB 1600, the cargo ship that reappeared empty. The ocean is a vast, unpredictable force, swallowing ships without a trace and sometimes spitting them back out in eerie, inexplicable ways. Some vessels vanish forever. Others return, adrift, intact yet completely abandoned. The Sam Rattlelangi PB 1600 was one such ship, a massive cargo vessel that appeared suddenly in 2018, drifting silently off the coast of Myanmar. No crew. No distress signals. No explanation. A ship lost to time. A crew that disappeared without a trace. And a ghost ship that left behind more questions than answers. The mystery of the Sam Rattlelangi PB 1600 remains one of the most baffling maritime puzzles of the modern age, a case that defies logic and challenges what we think we know about ghost ships. Could it be another maritime tragedy covered up by those who knew too much? Or was it something far more chilling, an event beyond human understanding? The mysterious appearance. August 2018. Myanmar's Coast Guards receive an unusual report. A massive, rusting cargo ship is drifting aimlessly near Yangon. Fishermen spot the vessel first, looming in the mist like an apparition from another era. It is the Samratulangi PB-1600, an Indonesian cargo ship that had been missing for nearly a decade. But when authorities board the vessel, they find something deeply unsettling. The ship is completely empty. There are no signs of life. No crew. No recent human activity. The bridge is abandoned, the engine room lifeless, and the cargo holds completely empty. There are no distress signals, no signs of struggle, no lifeboats missing. The ship had simply reappeared, sailing aimlessly with no one aboard. The eerie silence that greets the investigators only deepens the mystery. There is no indication of a struggle, no signs that the crew left in a panic, just a vessel frozen in time, abandoned without reason. Personal belongings remained in their places, as though the crew had been on board just moments before. The ship's logbooks were missing, adding another layer of mystery to its last recorded journey. The galley showed traces of food preparation, as if meals had been left unfinished in the midst of something unexplainable. The ship's wheel was locked in place, the engine powered down, and yet there were no signs of a rushed escape. The ship's navigation lights still flickered weakly, as if waiting for a hand to guide them once more. The air inside was damp, stale, and thick with the unmistakable scent of rust and seawater. Despite years adrift, the ship remained in an eerie state of preservation, almost as if it had been held in limbo, untouched by time itself. The investigation and theories. Authorities immediately launch an investigation. How had a ship of this size ended up here, drifting in silence? And where was its crew? After days of searching, they find a clue. 2 tugboats had been towing the Samratulangi PB-1600 toward a shipbreaking yard in Bangladesh. But something went wrong. A powerful storm had hit, snapping the tow lines. The ship, once tethered, was now adrift, abandoned at sea. But that answer only explains how the ship ended up near Myanmar. It does not explain what happened before that. Why was it left to rot for so many years? Why was it never officially reported missing? And most disturbingly, why did it have no records of its last voyage? Some believe the ship was being transported for illegal dismantling, part of the secretive and dangerous shipbreaking industry that thrives in South Asia. Others suspect it was involved in smuggling, its crew abandoning it after an operation went wrong. Then, there are those who whisper of something more sinister, of ghost ships that return from the void, carrying secrets no man can explain. But what if there was another explanation? Some theories suggest the crew may have suffered a sudden and catastrophic event, perhaps a toxic leak or an unexpected gas buildup that forced them to flee immediately. Others speculate about piracy, an attack that left no trace, no evidence, only silence. Yet, despite the speculation, no survivors, no bodies, and no solid clues ever surfaced. The ship was simply empty. Some investigators point to the possibility of foul play on a much larger scale. Could it have been part of a secret operation, a vessel deliberately erased from records to cover up its true purpose? There are even whispers of more supernatural explanations, of the ship sailing through a pocket of time, re-emerging in a different era, its crew lost somewhere between worlds. Others claim that when the vessel was first spotted, an unnatural mist surrounded it, vanishing moments after it was boarded. The unanswered questions. Even after its discovery, the Samratulangi PB-1600 remains an enigma. No one has come forward to claim responsibility for the vessel. No official records of its crew's fate exist. The ship, once a titan of trade, was left to drift in silence, a reminder that the sea does not always reveal its mysteries. Adding to the eerie nature of the case, some sailors reported strange encounters in the area where the ship was found, unexplained lights in the distance, radio interference, and ghostly shapes seen moving through the fog. Could the ship be haunted by those who once served aboard it? Or is it simply a case of human error, forgotten by time? Others believe that ships like the Sam Ratalangi PB-1600 serve as warnings, testaments to the ocean's power and the secrets it keeps locked away. Perhaps, somewhere in the murky depths, answers remain hidden, known only to the lost crew and the waves that claimed them. The ship has since been towed away, but even after its removal, the mystery remains. Some claim the ghostly outline of the Sam Ratalangi PB-1600 can still be seen drifting near Myanmar's waters, a phantom vessel forever repeating its final voyage. The Sam Ratalangi PB-1600 is proof that ghost ships are not just legends of the past. They still emerge from the depths, carrying only whispers of their lost histories. And perhaps, somewhere out there, another ship waits, hidden by the waves, ready to reappear, with no one aboard to tell its story. The ocean has its secrets, and sometimes it chooses to return them in the most unsettling ways. Whether the ship's mystery will ever be unraveled remains unknown. But one thing is certain: when the sea takes something, it does not always give it back the same way it was lost. And just like that, our journey through these haunting maritime mysteries comes to an end, for now. But the sea holds countless more secrets, waiting in the depths, whispering their eerie tales to those who dare to listen. If you enjoyed this voyage into the unknown, be sure to subscribe and join us for even more chilling stories of the deep. And don't stop here. There's another mystery waiting for you. Click on one of the videos on your screen now to keep exploring the strangest and most unexplained tales the world has to offer. You never know, the next ghostly ship might just be drifting into view. See you in the next one.